What's up, buddies? Brady Figuel here coming at you with a review for the new Drown In Sulphur album, Vengeance, that was released this past Friday, January 17th. The third album now by this Italian blackened-deathcore band, and their previous album was actually just released exactly a year ago, almost to the date. That being said, this is a new band to me, but the singles leading up to this album very much intrigued me, and I wanted to give this album a full review based just on those singles. Especially Morningstar and Seed of Hate, the second and third singles. Morningstar really does bring that blackened deathcore influence to the forefront, as both sides of this subgenre really are represented well. That main tremolo riff with those lightning fast double bass drums underneath it is exactly what comes to mind for me when I hear the term blackened deathcore. And that song as a whole does have parts like those gent riffs and even that like sort of beatdown influenced almost spoken word section that very much are leaning deathcore. But the overall dark and evil vibe of the song, plus that actual section with the blast beats and tremolo riffs, very much amplify the black metal influence that I was hoping to see on this album. And then Seed of Hate, which was the third single, which just goes for this monstrous groove that drives pretty much the entire song. As far as the time signature goes, it is in the fast 6/8 timing, or triplet-driven 4/4, whatever you want to call that timing. That just having that time signature, it just gives that song a natural swing to it, as it does with pretty much any song that uses it. And the riffs on this song and the stomping drums, the double bass drumming, everything, all these rhythms, plays off of that so well. Does it feel like a deathcore version of Walk by Pantera at times? Maybe a little bit, but they do a good enough job of differentiating this song from Walk by Pantera for this to still be a pretty fucking killer song. So now that I've complimented these two singles, which really were the reason I wanted to check out this album, let's dive into the full album, track by track, and see how it plays out. Guys, right when I hit play on track 1, Underworld, I was immediately disappointed. To start things off, I mean, this track, Underworld, is nothing more than a short intro ambient track with some like dystopian spoken word parts in it to lead into the album, to set the mood of the album. And I really don't think it does the best job of setting the mood, which is what these tracks are for. Especially on a 10-track album, which was already relatively short, this song really just is a waste of space at the end of the day, especially when they could have started this album out on such a heavy and just head chopping off note. But even if this song wasn't on there, I would still be frustrated with how this album starts, with the first full actual track on here, Faithless. Like, literally the first 30 seconds of this song sounds like fucking Skillet. And then the rest of the song is about as paint-by-numbers deathcore as you could possibly get. You got the gent riffs, you got the those synthy parts that we saw in the intro just kind of randomly appearing throughout the song. The use and abuse of gutturals as literally the only vocal style on this song. With the way this song moves and the way these parts are intertwined with each other, it sounds like a hot mess. I do not know what I'm supposed to feel from this song, because those synth melodies are supposed to sound like dramatic and emotional and almost like, I don't know, maybe heartbreaking would be a good adjective for that, but then the music underneath it is freaking just brutal. Like, these emotions do not mesh with each other at all. But at least this song actually tries to have some emotive ideas. I can't say the same about the next track on here, Vengeance, which is one of my absolute least favorite tracks on this record. Which is especially saying something considering this is the title track. This is the song that the album was named after. And it is just, the song is just impenetrable. It's like they just said, fuck any kind of nuances, fuck any kind of hooks, fuck any intelligibility. Let's just make the heaviest fucking music we could possibly make with this song. And I mean, if that was their goal, they definitely succeeded in it. But the result is a track that, for me, I just have nothing to latch onto. There's just nothing there. It's just as caveman as you could possibly get. On the guitar, it is just non-stop fucking breakdowns and gent riffs the entire time. Like, it's just a flat line dynamics-wise, even though I'll give it to them, those little bursts of tremolo riffs that come in like the second half of the song are decently cool. That's not enough to save this track. And then the vocals almost lean slam, which just it doesn't do it for me. There's nothing that makes me want to re-listen to this song. But I mean, the album does pick up some momentum in the middle here because you have Seed of Hate, which follows next, which again I've already singled out as just the absolute grooviest track on here. It actually is a part that will get stuck in your head and just has that monster stomp to it. And then the following track, Silence, is the first actual taste we get of some black metal on here. It took 5 tracks for them to get to the black metal on this album that's supposedly blackened-deathcore. So I wish they kind of brought those elements in sooner, but this is a pretty good song. And I like this song so much because it has that balance that I was looking for when I was going to review this album and when I was waiting for it to drop. Like, you get into the song and it's got, again, that really groovy riff that drives the intro, and then it's really back and forth between the breakdowns and gent riffs and palm muted stuff, and the, again, very emotive, very atmospheric tremolo riff. Both of this band's major influences, subgenre-wise, are fully on display here, and the way that it transitions, the way that these parts transition back and forth between each other is very smooth, and it's one of the most cohesive songs on the album, and one of the most dynamic songs on the album. Unfortunately, though, the album doesn't really keep up this momentum, because on the next track, Scarlet Rain, they decide to go completely off course to literally a song that borders on octane core, if you will. Like, I don't know what made them decide to go super melodic at this point in the record out of absolutely nowhere. I mean, at least I can credit them for this. I definitely didn't see that coming. But again, this song just doesn't do it for me at all. Like, you get that kind of droopy guitar melody that opens the song, and then you get those whiny vocals in the verse. I'm my own enemy. That really doesn't do it for me. It actually made me cringe quite a bit. And then, you guessed it, more gent riffs, breakdowns, the whole shebang with Paint by Numbers deathcore, and it's just that vicious cycle this entire song. It sounds so incohesive. These songs do not fit, these sounds, I should say, do not fit together at all. This song really was a swing and a miss. But I'll give them some props, at least for trying, because I like eclectic track lists. I like clean vocals. It just comes down to the execution, and for me, it just didn't do it. And then Veil of Deception's cool, I guess. It's very much a middle ground track on this album. I do like the emotive tremolo riffs, and it is one of the more dynamic cuts on here, and it does, again, show at least some emotion. It isn't just brute force deathcore the whole time. Although I'm really not sure why they decided to just repeat the same chord progression on the next track, Absentia, which is also the lead single for this record. And I'm not exaggerating. Like, these songs back to back use the exact same chord progression. And again, just on a 10-track album, I really don't understand why they decided to do that, because it really just makes these songs blend together at the end of the day. And it feels a bit like a waste, like there could have been a whole another new idea in place of one of these tracks. But the album does end on a positive note. I've already singled out Morningstar, the second single, as one of my favorite tracks on here. And the closing track, Inferno, is pretty good as well. In its mood, it definitely does bring those evil black metal-esque vibes to it. It has some real ominous tremolo riffing going on once again. It brings in more atmospheric elements, which I always like, especially in black metal or any blackened metal subgenre. And as far as any overarching opinions or thoughts I have on this record, I will say that many of the songs on here utilize some pretty cool guitar solos, so that definitely broke up the monotony of some of the more Paint by Numbers deathcore guitar parts, so I appreciate that for sure. The vocal performance, although they do get a little bit monotonous when it's just gutturals the entire time, it does make the parts where the more high screams come in a bit more memorable, and as a result they stick out. So that was another positive as well. As far as production goes, I think the guitars sound really good, the gent riffs especially, and those tremolo riffs, especially when they're kind of together. It does make for some really epic collisions. The drums, I think, sound a little bit like overly mechanical, but they still at least pack a punch and maintain that sense of urgency, so that's not too much of an irritating factor for me. And in conclusion, I mean, if you're a deathcore fan, definitely check out this album. Deathcore is just really hit or miss for me, and this album just happened to be a lot more of those misses. But if you like deathcore, you will most likely enjoy this album. For me, though, it's a pretty mixed bag, and for that reason, I'm going to score this album a 13 out of 30. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to comment your thoughts on this album below. I'd love to hear them. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace.